I made it. June is the date that is being floated around for these mass layoffs, right? From the VA and I probably other places too. I'm focused on the VA here. So it says here, memo says mass layoffs at Veterans Affairs will begin early as June of 2025. I'd love to get your thoughts on it. Do you look, here's the bottom line. None of us, well, maybe some of you work at the VA, but most of us do not work at the VA. We have no clue if the VA is bloated, not bloated, whatever. I mean, the pendulum swings consistently. And a funny little fact here is less than a year ago, or about a year ago, the VA said, we are going to cut 10,000 positions in VHA, the Veterans Health Administration. So, I did that need to happen then? I don't know. I mean, they never really did it, but they said they were. So in any case, hit the thumbs up, subscribe, share with a friend, all that good stuff. I truly appreciate it. Every thumbs up, every minute watched helps to share the information so we're aware of what's going on and we can, be aware, which is an important thing. So let's jump into this. The Department of Veterans Affairs will begin mass layoffs at the politically sensitive agency as early as June, according to a memo reviewed by Reuters. The memo, which is dated March 6th, directs the Department Human Resources team to begin reviewing the agency's operations with an eye toward firing civil servants. It said it expects the review to be done by June, after which VA will initiate department-wide RIF actions, RIF, reduction in force, using an acronym for, reduction in force. All right. In a response to a request for comment, the VA sent Reuters a link to VA Secretary Doug Collins' recent opinion piece in The Hill, in which he defended the cuts as thorough and thoughtful. Veterans groups, Democrats, and some Republicans have already voiced concern over the planned reduction at the department, which is seeking to cut more than 80,000 workers from the agency. By the way, if you take $7 billion with a B, $7 billion and divide it by 80,000, you come up with approximately $87,500 per employee. $7 billion. So if it's $7 billion in savings, an interesting little tweak here or number is the VA. I mean, 5-6 months ago, at the end of the Biden administration, the VA said, hey, look, we're short $6.6 billion for our VHA budget, the Health Administration budget. We're short $6.6 billion. So 80,000 workers would probably cover that shortfall. Coincidence? Love to get your thoughts. The scale.
Yeah, they scaling back. They scaling back trying to save money and nobody's safe. So you got to position yourself somewhere that you'll be safe because you got bills to pay and you got to survive. And you don't want to be sleeping in your car because it's a lot of people living outside, sleeping in their car, living in U-Hauls, in storage facilities because they've lost money and it's hard to find a job. Losing a job is one thing, but looking for another one is a whole nother hellhole.
Of the layoffs at the VA is greater than proposed cuts at other agencies and will hit a department that looks after a group of typically garners wide bipartisan support in the U.S. its military veterans. Patty Murray of Washington, the top Democrat on the Senate Appropriations Committee, said last week that the job cuts marked an escalation of a full-scale no-holds-barred assault on veterans by President Donald Trump. That would put veterans' health benefits in grave danger. Republican U.S. Senator Lindsey Graham of South Carolina, who said he learned of the cuts from the media, called it political malpractice, not to consult Congress about the measures. The cuts are part of Trump and billionaire advisor Elon Musk's efforts to dramatically slash the size of the federal government.
This headline this morning, Dow headed for worst April since the Great Depression.
Oh my God.
What is this all about?
Since the Great Depression. You mean we on part 2. Stop saying like that was the only time it was depression. It's one right now. April was the worst. March, April, January, and February have been the worst.
Basically, what we have is a situation where over the course of the last several weeks, there's been a an evolving narrative, if you will, right? We talked about this notion that with new policies, especially on the tariff front, what you have is a new degree of uncertainty brought to global markets, global trade, that then manifests itself in the way that markets have reacted with some of that downside volatility. Now, I remember over the course of the last, few weeks having this conversation kind of around the lead up to that so-called Liberation Day and the tariff announcement about the stabilization factor of the U.S. market and the U.S. economy. Over the course of the last several decades, the American economy and the markets, the capital markets, have been seen as a stabilizing force within the global economy and the global market, one that you can turn to no matter what, in good times and in bad. That narrative has shifted a little bit more. It started off a little bit more along the lines of, can you still trust the U.S. dollar? Now, the U.S. dollar is the preeminent and the world's really only reserve currency out there. It's the one that you go to because pretty much every asset out there worth having is denominated in U.S. dollars. The U.S. Treasury market is the deepest, most liquid sovereign bond market in the world. It is the safest place to be. In the course of the last few weeks, there's been a little bit of chatter early on about the luster coming off some of those assets, the U.S. dollar and the U.S. Treasury side of things. Over the course of the last couple of weeks, there is now a full-blown debate in certain parts of Wall Street about whether or not there is a market shine. But when you have a possible paradigm shift, a change in thinking about the way that the dollar is valued and viewed in the global market, the way that our sovereign bonds, the U.S. Treasury market, is viewed in the market, that shift or potential shift is enough to have traders and investors, not just here in America, but around the world, questioning whether or not you have to change the way that you think about it. Now, to be fair, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, like every other Treasury Secretary before him, has proclaimed the notion of a strong U.S. dollar and, of course, the idea that the U.S. capital markets are the deepest, most liquid in the world. The question now becomes, guys, whether or not that incremental effect of not just the tariff and trade policy, but now the attacks on the central bank and its independence and its leader are making those assets, again, relatively less attractive. They are still the most attractive out there, but in a term of relative less luster, could that change the way that people think about the way that the U.S. markets operate? That's what you're kind of seeing play out right now.
I don't know, you guys. I am so anxious to see these tariffs reset us and make us better. So we're going to sit back and hold tight, and we're going to watch and see, do America turns out greater in the end? We'll find out.
If you are a believer, you're born again, you are called to be a watchman or watchwoman or watch person, doesn't matter. So that means you are someone who's to behold, to look up. You're called to be one who waits on the Lord.